Very good evening, everyone. I hope my voice is audible. A quick yes or no on chat would be great. Let me just drop a message right now. Good evening. One. Okay. I see Miss Vinita Gupta. Good evening, Mr. Shivaram. Channa Krishnan, good evening. Very good evening, Miss Devishri. Devishwari, sorry. Okay. Mr. Roshali, I hope my voice is clear now. You can hear me, right? Okay. Okay. Good to see Miss Nilima Menon. I think I've definitely noticed your name in a couple other webinars before. All right. So we will get started shortly. We're just waiting for few more attendees to join us. Very good evening, Mr. Mayank. Okay. Yeah, Miss Kajal, we were on mute, so I think now you should be able to hear me. Very good evening, Mr. Pawan. Okay. So, audience, while we wait for us to start off, what I'm going to quickly do is I want to have a small conversation on our comments. So, I'm sure the audience here is mostly from the HR end, right? A majority of them will surely be from the HR end. So, what I'd like to know is what is it that you're expecting from today's session? Okay. I'm seeing Ms. Kajal is mentioning that she can't hear. I hope I'm audible to all. Okay, good evening, Ms. Yamini. Okay, all right. So, Ms. Kajal, I think you'll have to check your settings once because the others are able to hear me. Yeah, yeah. So, as I was saying, while most of them are from the HR end, I'm pretty sure of that. I'd like to know what is it that you're expecting from today's session. Now, the topic obviously being performance management strategies. This is not just for the HR, but this would ideally cover on a managerial level, right? So this is what we are going to look at today, and we have our speaker who is at present at the backstage. He will join us shortly. So what is it that you are expecting to hear from today's session, and what do you think will be covered is something that I'd like to know. So a few comments from all of you would be great. We'll have a small conversation while we wait a little longer to start off. Thank you. Okay, as I see, Ms. Vinita has mentioned, how do we make it an objective? How do we make it an objective performance management system than a subjective one? Okay, that's a rather interesting question. Ms. Vinita, just a kind request if you can put this on the Q&A, I'd like our speaker also to take this up. This definitely seems like a good question. So just my kind request for you to copy it and paste it on your Q&A tab. I think you can see it right beside chat so that we can keep a track of it. Okay. All right. And we have a question from Mr. Mayank from today's session. Explain your strategy, what employees should do to optimize the performance of individuals based on their skills and expertise. How they must coordinate with each other. They have similar department of work. Okay. All right. But I think we will also look at it from an employee point of view. So surely a good question over here. Okay. All right. I think two of them have raised their hands, Ms. Shivaram and Ms. Pranavi. Let me know if I can be of any help. You can type it on chat. Since you've raised your hand, I thought I will just check if there's anything that I can help with. Okay. Anyone else? Any further comments from the audience? Just looking forward to seeing a few more responses. Ms. Vinita and Mr. Mayank had their comments here. Okay, we'll get started in exactly 3 minutes. Also, audience, just want to mention that today's session, we look forward to it being an engaging session. We have a couple polls as well to keep you engaged. And those of you who are interested in a Q&A, if you have any sort of HR related queries or performance management, anything related to the topic today, feel free to drop your questions to the speaker. We'll address it as the session goes forward. All right. Thank you all for your patience. Yeah, Ms. Kajal still not able to hear. You'll have to check your settings because I think the rest of them are able to hear. Um, all right. So I think without any further ado, let's get started. Once again, a very good evening to everyone. Thank you all for your patience. Once again, we welcome you to yet another webinar with us. We have our speaker backstage, who I will shortly introduce. So, before we get into today's topic, the slides revolving around the topic, what I'm going to do is I'll run you through a very short, crisp company presentation to just take you in a quick tour to understand what we have on offer, what we do, and what we have for the HR, that is. So, moving forward, let me introduce myself. I am Siddharth Nandakumar. I handle product marketing at Websol, and I will also be your moderator for the day. Okay, so I hope all of you are able to see my screen. Quick confirmation before we move forward. Okay, great. Yeah. So this is a quick timeline of our company. As you know, most organizations undergo changes, right, over the years. So I would like to mention that our company, that is Websol, was in fact part of Wipro. We were the domestic IT business department. So what that means is we were handling printer peripheral manufacturing, your dot matrix printers. These are the things that we were taking care of. While aside this, obviously your toners, cartridges, all your peripherals is something that we took care of as well. Now, we were most commonly known until 2000 for our dot matrix printers. That is where we were highlighted, in fact. But over the years, the company, in fact, decided to step out of Wipro as a separate entity. They did see some sort of potential in the business to enrich over the years, and so this specific department of Wipro decided to step out of Wipro and form a company of itself. While it did come out of Wipro, the Wipro legacy continued, and it was still known by the name of Wipro e-Peripherals. While over the years we carried over our managed print services model. Now more on this as we move forward, and the company changed its name to Web Solutions. While WEP essentially means Wipro e-Peripherals, uh, we started to retain Web instead of Wipro e-Peripherals. And in 2017, we decided to bring in the digital workplace solutions portfolio. Now, what this means is something that I'll explain over the next few slides. And the most rather significant radical change that we underwent as a company last year was the complete rebranding. So we now go by the name of Websol. As you can see, this is our brand, and we also have a complete gamut of enterprise and retail offerings, which go by under the name of Fluidworks. I will explain that as we move forward. Okay. Quick highlights of our company. We come with over 24 years of industry expertise. We have close to 563 enterprise customers, and on the retail end, we come with close to 3 lakh customers. We're present in over 2,500 service locations across India, and we also won the Company of the Year award by CIO Tech Outlook Review in the year 2022. Quick view of some of our customers, as you can see. All right. Moving forward. Now, as I was mentioning, this is our offering. We go by the name of Fluidworks. Now, I'm sure all of you obviously know the name of fluid, right? Fluid, the characteristic of fluid or water or anything fluid essentially means that it flows, correct? So, what we do here is we are able to offer solutions based on enterprise, based on end user requirements, and the solution will basically be able to flow. The idea is we offer a very scalable and tailor-made solution for each and every requirement. Like, as you know, in an organization, each end user might have a specific requirement, right? While organizations themselves have different requirements, now the end users is what we essentially target. So what that means is I can be an end user, my colleague can be an end user, or every single participant that we have here with us today can be an end user. Mr. Shivram can be an end user. Ms. Devika can be an end user. So that is the idea, right? Each of you will have a specific requirement, and our solution will be able to cater to your tailor-made requirements. So that is Fluidworks. Now, under Fluidworks, we have a different set of offerings, which again go by the name of Fluid. More on this in the next slide. All right. So what is Fluid Pro? This is our managed IT services. To make it simple for everyone here, what this means is your server architecture, your IT infra, right? Servers, Wi-Fi access points, all your IT hardware. For example, your mouse, peripherals like keyboards, laptops, PCs, all of this. And you might even require servers on the cloud or on premise. which will essentially be in a specific server room, right? So this will enable your solution to be able to support your customers, your end users, right? So this is basically a very crucial part for every organization, and this is something that we can take care of solely. We will be able to handle your entire IT infra, and right from managing your IT infra, consulting it, to finally implementing and executing it. This is what Fluid Pro is. We take care of that. We also have a 24/7 a dedicated NOC center, which will take care of your support 24/7, and we sit in Bangalore. Now, what is Fluid Print? This is our managed print services. To make it very simple, what managed print services essentially means is, assume that you have 500 printers as a requirement. You will not be required to buy the 500 printers. Rather, you'll be able to rent it, and we will offer a gamut of services revolving around it, right from maintenance, AMC, your toner level, cartridge level. All of this will be taken care by us, and we will simply charge you on a pay per print basis. What this means is, assume that you're going to print 5,000 papers in a month. We will charge you for that 5,000, and you can split it on a quarter or 2 months or annually, or however that works. This is Fluid Print, and we are also number one in India on the managed print services part. What is Fluid Map? Now, let I will explain what exactly Fluid Map is. What this means is, now that you've deployed multiple IT hardware across your organization, correct? And you also have n number of printers. How do you manage these hardware? It is simply with a remote tool that is installed in your network, and we will be able to track all your IT assets, and we will be managing this on an eagle eyes vision. So every hardware that is installed in different locations in your company, be it Ahmedabad, it could be Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, wherever that is, right? Now, your uptime, downtime, all of this can be taken care, and you will also be given a dedicated field service engineer who will take care of your toner levels and cartridge levels on a time period. So that's Fluid Map. Let's move to Fluid Trail, which is the last offering that I'd like to explain. Now, this is something that I think the audience here will be able to relate to. This is our proprietary process automation solution. With this, basically, you'll be able to take care of your document management on the go, cloud, or it could be on-premise, your sharing, and also certain workflow automations to make it specific, your candidate onboarding, offboarding, leave management, various approvals, leave approvals, attendance, payroll, all of this can be taken care by Fluid Trail. So this is what Fluid Trail is. We have certain use cases. We have almost 100 plus use cases that are deployed already, but to specifically mention a few, employee records management can be taken care by us. Your onboarding process, offboarding, all of that is done in one window. P2P for the procurement department, and DMS is our document management solution, which is built in. We also have presence on the retail end, but I will not explain that as of today. So that's it on the company introduction end. Once again, thank you all for your patience and having to listen to me. Now, a quick poll for all of you before we head forward. There is obviously not going to be a demo of our solution. So I'd like to know if the audience here would be interested in a free demo of Fluid Trail HR automation solution. Please note that this is a free demo, and based on your availability and requirement, we will be able to give you a demo based on your availability. We have different use cases. As you can see, I have mentioned a few on the screen itself for your reference. It could be document management, your simple employee records management, Aadhaar card, PAN card, government, academic related documents. How do you store this on the cloud, and how do you manage this, right? How do you centralize, streamline, and manage this is something that we can show you. We also have candidate onboarding, offboarding, leave management on the HRMS end. Our capabilities are not full blown, but we do have uh, several elements that can take care of your HRMS. And on the side note, we also undertake integration. Assume that you have SAP Oracle that is already deployed in your organization. We'll be able to integrate as well. Okay. Thank you all for the inputs. Let me end the poll right now. All right. Without any further ado, let's introduce our speaker for the day, Mr. Avinash Tyagi. Now, I'm sure we've had a bunch of attendees here who've already attended plenty of his webinars before. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and introduce him. Mr. Avinash Tyagi brings in over 25 plus years of experience, extending to strategic HR, business restructuring, performance management, which we will clearly talk about today, global recruitment, and tech implementation as his areas of expertise. Having held several roles in the past as on the managerial level and as country HR head in the past for Landmark Group across various industry verticals as well, his experience extends by folds and adds value to those aspiring to make a difference in the HR and leadership fields. I take great pleasure in introducing him on yet another webinar with us. I don't know what the number of webinars is. In fact, we've been doing. I think I've been associated with Mr. Avinash for the last 1.5 years, and I am sure the audience is looking forward to directly hearing from you, sir. So I will hand it over to you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Avinash, I think you'll have to unmute yourself if you haven't.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Siddharth, for introducing me. And it's my pleasure to interact with, to get opportunity to interact with a vast number of HR professionals, leadership professionals from India. And I hope that the session is going to be very interactive, right? We believe in interaction. So feel free to ask questions and then we'll, if possible, I will stop and answer at that point of time, or otherwise, we'll address it at the end of the session, right? So let's begin. Let's try to understand, dwell into, and let's try to learn what performance management is and how complicated the performance management is. So to begin with, so we'll begin on a lighter note. So here are two cartoons which are available, which I found pretty interesting. So on the one aspect, it says a fearsome aspect of performance management. So here the human resource, they are saying that performance management is a bit old school and it is very, very threatening to the employees. The employees are really very scared of it. On the other hand, also the employees are trying to impress the boss and trying to get the good evaluation, not on every day, but on the day of the performance appraisal is happening. So actually, this is in a way you can say that it's a reality. We can always take it with a pinch of salt. So performance appraisal is, if you ask me, it is one of the most joked about, most talked about, most feared, or one of the most no deadly thing. It is a line mine for especially for HR professionals because it is very, very difficult to have a performance appraisal and which is very, very fair, transparent, and which is able to satisfy the employees as well as the managers as well as the management. Next slide, please. So we'll also begin, we'll see what are the various famous quotes around performance management. So Peter Drucker has once said very, very famously that you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So if you have to manage the performance, you have to measure it. So imagine a situation in your organization, there is no performance appraisal happening for last couple of years or 3 or 5 years, and everybody is randomly getting paid or getting the same increment. So ultimately what's going to happen that people will stop focusing on performance because they know that, okay, in any case, I am going to be rewarded or punished or there's going to be no distinction uh, between a good performer and non-performer. So it's very important that, okay, we have to start measuring what we really want to achieve. Second thing, Diana Waring said that the difference between mediocrity and excellence is often a matter of effort. So the people will tend to be mediocre if they are not putting effort. So the difference between a good to great company, they say, is that the amount of effort people put in. If the people are just coming and going out, they're punching in, punching out, and they are just counting hours, and they are just not too much focused on performance. Ultimately, the organization will be a mediocre organization, and it is likely that the organization may perish in the market, in the competitive market especially. Other famous saying in management we very often use, and I'm sure you must have heard it also, that whatever gets measured gets done. For example, if I need to improve the punctuality of my people, I need to start measuring the punctuality of my people. if I need to improve the quality of my product, sorry, so I need to start measuring the quality of my product. So whatever gets measured will be getting done. Next slide, please. So I request you to have a look at this cartoon. So here what's exactly happening is that at the end of the performance appraisal, the manager is worried why the employee is not performing. So when he inquires employee, employee say that, okay, I wasn't appraised this bad before. So that means the reason why the employee is not performing is because the appraisal was not done properly. So we have to understand what is the reason and why the performance appraisal is done in the first place. A performance appraisal is not done to demotivate an employee, right? Performance appraisal also not is not a fault finding exercise. But unfortunately, most of the organizations they end up doing the same thing. They end up doing it, making it a fault finding exercise, wherein the leadership or the managers they sit with the employees and they start nitpicking and finding faults with the performance of the employee. Right? It ultimately leads to the employee becoming more and more frustrated and becoming more non-performer. Next slide, please. So let's try to understand a bit of theory. So what are the various approaches to measure performance? So you can measure performance of your people by three ways. Either you can have the performance measure which are trait approach. Trait approach means, for example, if I have to find out which of my accountant is a good accountant, what I will do is I will give all of them a accountancy test, and whichever accountant is scoring higher, so I will assume that he is a good accountant and he is a better performer, right? Similarly, I will say that, okay, this person is coming on time every day and is very punctual, so that means he must be a good worker or must be a good performer. So the performance of a person is determined actually by the trait the person is exhibiting. Second way of measuring performance is you measure the behavior or the activity. So here it is a more of a process oriented. So what I do is, for example, if I have to find out that, okay, whether the person is performing properly or not, what I do is, what are the efforts the person is putting, right? Number of steps, the way he is doing, whether he's complying with all the SOPs or not, right? So for example, a person, there is a salesman. I have to measure his performance as a salesman. So how do I do? So what I do is I just observe the salesman and find out whether the salesman is following all the steps. Whether is he approaching the customers, the number of customers he was supposed to approach, is he doing it? Is he opening the sales talk or closing it in a proper way? So on and so forth. So what we are doing here is we are observing the behavior of the employee or the activity the employee is doing, right? The third one is we do the performance appraisal by measuring the result. So here it is not what a person is doing is measured. Ultimately, the management said, okay, we are least bother whatever you do, but ultimately we want you to produce results, right? I'm sure you must have heard it very often. So here the focus is on whether the employee is producing result or not. So this is also our approach where the end result is measured. So the difference between the behavior activity approach or result approach is, in activity approach, a surgeon will possibly come and say that, okay, I have performed a fantastic uh, operation. The procedure was fantastic and everything was very good, but unfortunately, no, I was not able to save the patient. Right? Operation was good, but the patient is dead. So here the focus is not on the result, right? But the challenge with the result base is that, okay, the employee may tend to adopt shortcuts because they know that whatever you do, the people are not bothered. The organization will just ultimately see whether you are able to achieve the result or not. Next slide, please. A brief of performance appraisal process. I'm sure all of you know it, but it is always better to revise the basic before we dwell into the complexity of the subject, right? So in the first step of any performance appraisal process would be to establish the performance standard, and second to mutually set a measurable goals. So the goals has to be measurable. So this will dwell in detail in coming slide. So first you understand, or first you determine what are the goals we have to set for our employees. Second thing is then you sit with employees and fix on, agree on the goals which you are going to set with employees. Third is then you measure the actual performance. Right. So, for example, if I have set a goal that the person has to do maybe 100 crores of sales, or he has to do a particular task in a particular financial year. So, I have to measure whether the person has done it or not. So, it doesn't make any sense if I am giving a target and I am never bothering to measure it at all. Right. Then I compare the actual performance with the standard which was set earlier. After that, we have to discuss appraisal with employee, and if it required, then we have to take a corrective action. So we'll dwell in this all these steps in details in the coming slides. Next slide,
So,
please.
sir,
Yeah, please.
is it okay if I can just launch a quick poll?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, audience, we have a couple polls that are coming up, but let me just launch this. Now, obviously, I think I can ask this at a later stage also, but since I have a bunch of polls, I thought I'd launch this. What is the primary goal of performance management according to you? I think it's rather easy. I've given rather easy options. So, choose the right one and then we will get going. Okay, great to see the responses. Okay, we have about 20. Can we have another 5 more? Two more responses. Okay, all right. One of them has selected employee turnover. Okay, while I'm not sure if that will be a one, but okay, all right. So let me just quickly share the results, and I think most of you have got it right. To improve organizational efficiency and effectiveness. How do we do this? Obviously, when the employees being the main resource for an organization, we need to take care of that, right? So this will be addressed with performance management. Okay, all right. And yes, employee morale can also be there for sure. Okay, moving to the next slide.
Right. So we now let's try to understand. So there are three important players actually. So the employee, his or her supervisor, and the skip level manager, and definitely the HR department. So the performance appraisal has to be designed and launched by the HR department. Definitely, it involves training the supervisors and the leadership team on how to do it, why we are doing it, and including we have to train the employees as well on the performance appraisal, whatever no, the method or the process we are designing. After that, the employee is responsible for setting goals with supervisors, and employee is responsible for addressing the performance issue, right? So what is the role of supervisor here? Supervisor, the role is to provide performance feedback to the employees, right? Supervisor also appraises the direct report employees. What is the role of the head of department or the skip level manager? Is that okay? There should be somebody who will be reviewing the rating given by the supervisor, and they also need to coach the supervisor, right? As we have, as most of you have very correctly said in the earlier poll, that the goal of the performance management is to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the employee, and definitely to improve his morale and to improve his productivity, right? So these are the goals. So we should never ever lose the focus on the actual goals of the performance appraisal process. Next slide, please. Now the manager is in today's corporate world is a poor chap. I pity the person because he is sandwiched between the management and the employees. The manager is responsible and he is accountable for the performance of his team. If the team is not performing, the manager has to be blamed and manager is blamed, right? Uh, the managers, they are responsible for holding the performance discussion. Performance discussion holding with the employees is definitely time consuming and is usually very stressful for the manager as well for the employees, right? So usually people are always scared of discussing the performance with the maybe the so-called naughty employees or the tough employees. Managers, they are usually very not very comfortable because they lack the training. They are not very trained how to deal with the different type of personalities they have in their team members, right? Now the managers also have a dilemma that how many goals are to be set and how to set. So uh, if we no, I can ask the team members. So what do you think should be the ideal size of a goals? How many goals and a manager should set? So we should have a
Yeah.
high number of goals or limited goals.
Okay. Audience, I think you can mention the number on chat. That'll be great. What do you think is the number of goals that needs to be set for the subordinates? You can mention it on the chat. Okay. 5, 6. Any more responses?
Right.
Mhm.
Mr. Vinita, Mr. Shivram, Ms. Aparna. Right, Mr. Shali. Correct. So I think the Neha Kumari 4, Mayank 5 to 6. Right. So I am very happy that I have got a very enlightened audience. So 100%. So that makes my job easy. Right. So 5 to 6 is right. 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 Exactly. Rupali is saying that it has to be measurable. 100%. We'll go to the next slide. Right. The goals has to be specific and SMART goals. And I'm sure everybody knows the definition of SMART. The goals have to be very specific. I cannot just vaguely give goal to my people that you have to perform good, right? So I have to exactly mention that what exactly is expected of my team members. Goal has to be specific and they have to be measurable. I cannot give any vague goal. So instead of saying that okay, the team need to produce a good quality product, I have to specify that the team has to produce a quality product where there is no more than 0.01% of rejection, right? So I have to specify that okay, if you are producing maybe 1,000 items, so there should not be more than one rejection because of the poor quality. So it has to be measurable. And third important thing is attainable. So attainable here means that okay, I cannot give a unrealistic target to my employees. I cannot say that okay, you do maybe 2 crore of sale and in next FY 25-26 and you have done only maybe 50,000 or 5 lakh of sale in maybe the previous year. So it has to be attainable and it has to be relevant. I cannot give uh, a goal of excelling in singing or excelling in driving to my finance manager because that is not relevant to his performance. I cannot say to my finance manager that okay, you need to learn maybe defensive driving or you need to learn driving in desert, different environment, or you need to learn something about HSC, right? So I have to give the goals which are relevant to the particular person, and definitely I have to give a goal which is time bound. I cannot just say that okay, you need to produce a certain amount of sale. So I have to specify whether I mean that sale to be done in 6 months, 1 year, or 1 month, whatever the time bound it has to be. Now, having understood the SMART goals, let's try to understand what should be the sources of the goal. How do I find out which type of goal and what type of goal I have to give? So we all know that the goals have to derive from the organization. it has to be aligned to the strategy of the organization, right? Based on the goal taken by the organization. So the goal will be divided to division and department, and it will flow to the individual. For example, the goal of my organization in coming year is going to be to expand in maybe 3 more states. So based on the expansion plan, I will give the goal to HR department. For that, possibly they have to recruit for these 3 new states. Similarly, if the L&D function is there, then they need to train the new recruit. They have to have a proper induction, right? Similarly, it's marketing department, then possibly they have to do a proper marketing research, so on and so forth. So that means based on the strategy of the organization, the goals are flowing to the division and department, and based on that, it will go to the individual person, right? Second thing, I have to understand where this particular team member is spending most of his time, right? If the team member is spending most of the time in, for example, audit, so I cannot. It is a bad idea if I give a more weightage for him to on tech implementation for his department, right? Right, or possibly I give a 70% weightage on the controlling attrition of his team members, and only 5% on his the quality of audit he is doing, right? So we have to first understand what the particular person is doing it, and where he's spending most of time, and definitely understanding the job description of the particular person or role, right, in detail is very, very important. Similarly, at certain times you have to align the personal interest with the organization goals also, right? So we already say, for example, say that okay, some person is very good in singing, is interested possibly singing or writing, but he is maybe he's a techie, he's a coder. So I cannot expect a coder to spend more time in writing good novels and etc. Right? So you have to align the personal interest with the organization goal, and then you have to measure it. Next slide, please. Right, this we have already discussed. So the audiences will learn. So we come to understand. So we cannot give a very, very high number of goals. So I have seen when I'm doing consultancy of many of the organizations. So the manager, they usually prepare a laundry list, and they just dump this laundry list on the poor employee. So in certain cases, the employee has to do 20, they are setting 20 goals, 25 goals. They feel the more the merrier. So it is not a good idea actually. So Andy Grove from Intel says that okay, he's saying that a limit of 3 to 5 KPIs or OKRs is what is suggested per cycle. So you want to choose those critical areas which will be critical for the growth of the organization and which is aligned to the organization goal. Right. So, Mr. Mayank, you're 100% correct, right? We overrate ourselves. We sometimes overrate ourselves, or sometimes we overrate our maybe employees as well, right? So we possibly we expect too much from them. So maybe I'm loading maybe 10 tons of weight on maybe 100cc bike, right? So we need to understand that okay, whatever the goals are going, I should not be overload a person. So there's other concept which we'll see in the coming slide. Next slide, please. So this concept is of stretch goals. So the concept of stretch goals means that okay, you should not be giving a very easy task to your people, so that will demotivate them, right? For example, if I say to my all of you are senior professionals, if I give you a simple task of improving your handwriting, or either you have to write A to Z alphabets maybe 10 times or 100 times in a notebook, and based on that I'm going to measure your performance, so you will laugh and you will possibly not motivated. Or I give to one of my senior worker a very, very mundane task, or which is very, very simple task, so that will lead to mediocrity, right? And mediocrity possibly will lead to demotivation also from good workers. Definitely if I give a very high number of tasks, it leads to frustration and demotivation. If at all the employee feel that okay, my manager has given me so many goals and in any case I will do it, because I need to survive in the organization. I need to earn bread for my family. So they will try to do it, but definitely they will possibly cut corners, and they may adopt some unethical means to complete this. So what is advisable is to give a stretch goals. The stretch goal is, for example, if somebody has done 100, so stretch goal is not 200. Stretch goal would be somewhere around 130 to 140, or maybe depending on the organization to organization. So you understand the dynamics of your team better. So give a goal where which is not very easily achievable and which is not always impossible to achieve. Right. So this is the meaning of stretch goal. Please understand, we want our people to stretch. We don't want them to break or crumble. Next slide, please.
So, sir, I just want to quickly take these guys for a poll. So,
Yes,
just
please.
give me a minute, okay?
Sure.
So, audience, I want all of you to quickly take a look at your chat. There is a LinkedIn link that is pasted. We have a live poll that's ongoing on our social media handle on LinkedIn, the company handle. So, I just click on the link and this should take you a quick, I don't know, maybe 10-15 seconds, and then we can get back to the slides. Let me read out the question nevertheless. Which is a key aspect of effective performance evaluations? Options are objective assessments, regular progress monitoring, manager-employee communication, and is it clear expectations? Request all of you to try and input your answer, and we will get back to the presentation. On a side note, those of you who would like to see regular HR related posts or any blogs, regular activities related to your domain, please feel free to follow us on Websol, that is on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to see a lot of engaging posts over the time. Okay, not bad. I think there's about 9 votes. Can we have a few more? And I did see someone raise their hands. Yeah, Ms. Pranavi, is there something that I can help you out with? Not able to open the link. Okay. Not sure why that's. Let me just paste it again for you. I hope the rest of them were able to, because I did see a bunch of votes happening. You might have to log into your LinkedIn if it's not working, that is. Okay, Suvarna has mentioned. Yeah, okay. We have about 14 votes, which is great. Okay. All right. Okay, so we can get back to the presentation. Sir, over to you. I'll go to the next slide.
Yes, please. So the important aspect where most of the employees or the managers they fail here is they usually don't collaborate with their employees to creating the plan or by setting the goals and implementation of it. Right. Usually the leadership or the managers they have a tendency of uh, belief or misbelief that no they know the best and what is best for them and the team. So the involvement of in a certain organization of the employees is very less. So the employees have the perception that this goals are being no dumped on me or dumped on my head, and I have got very less or no ownership of it. So in that case, what is going to happen is that the initiative taken by the employees would be very less. So it's very important that we involve our employees in setting the goals and also finding out the ways how we are going to achieve that goals. So it will be involving them, and possibly it may happen. In my experience, I've seen that many times we get to learn a lot of things from our uh, employees, our colleagues, our junior colleagues, right? Because they are on the ground and they possibly will come up with a lot of ideas for improvement, and they may have some idea which will possibly no help me. So even there were various researchers we say that almost 80% of the ideas usually comes from the frontliners. The ideas which no take the organization to the next league, the path breaking ideas, right? So you can always take the plan timing for each task. It's not like that, okay, once you are given a goal, then you just forget it and you are checking at the end of the financial year. So you have to break the goal into various time charts, right? So use the Gantt chart. You can use it. Based on that, you can break the bigger goal into small objectives, and so you can track whether you are on track or not, or whether you are missing the timeline or not. Based on that. Next slide, please. Other thing is, again, as I was mentioning early in my earlier slide, which we'll also see on the various best practices which I picked up from the across the globe, that the organizations are now moving from the one-time performance appraisal to the real-time performance appraisal, right? The performance management has to be ongoing, right? So I should be able to pick up the possible cause of poor performance, right? Immediately, not after after a half a year, or maybe when I'm doing I'm doing half yearly performance appraisal, or in worst scenario on the yearly appraisal time only, right? So the possible cause of poor performance could be the skill deficiency in my employee. If the real cause is skill deficiency, so I can possibly send this person for a training and upgradation of his skills. It could be the poor time management. The person could be very skilled, but the poor performance is possibly due to his poor time management, or maybe he's having some work habits which is not helping him or her. The reason could be the conflict with the other employee. So the result, the employee could be maybe a good performer, is putting all the effort, but maybe he's not getting support from his team members, right? So that could be the real cause of his poor performance. So it would be pity on a manager that, okay, the manager is not able to pick up the real reason, and he is just seeing or observing that the person is not able to perform, but he's not able to sanitize the environment, or create a nurturing environment where the employee can work and perform better. So it's very important that as a manager, you have to sit and understand what is the reason for poor performance. It could be due to conflict with the other employee, right? The other reason which is commonly seen is the very bad processes. Many times, many of the organizations, they have a cumbersome processes that create hindrance in performance. For example, they have to uh, take multiple approvals. So I remember instances in my earlier years of my career in HR. So just to celebrate birthdays, we needed to take approval from 4 or 5 people, right? So the idea is to celebrate birthday, but but the person who is trying to organize that birthday cake, he has to take so many approvals, and inevitably some of the person, they always used to forget to give approval, and it delays the process, and that it creates a lot of frustration in the work environment. So we have to understand whether the poor performance is it because of the person individual, or because we have tied his hands and legs because of multi-approval process. A poor performance can also be due to work overload, right? So based on this, we have to first understand what is the real reason of uh, poor performance. Having said that, okay, we have to find out what is the real reason of poor performance. Similarly, we also need to find out what is the reason for good performance. It should not happen that if somebody is performing exceedingly well, and so we don't just understand why he's performing so good. So the advantage of understanding why a person is performing so good, because once you understand it, then it can go to your knowledge bank. Then possibly you can replicate this same thing across the organization, and it may lead to improved performance across the organization. Next slide, please. Right. If you see see the cartoon here, so here we understand that possibly the performance appraisal process is not very uh, good one. The feedback provided is not very nice. So the employee is short or maybe asked to leave the organization, right? So that is not the way. So we should not be doing that way. So first, the first thing is when you are doing performance appraisal and providing feedback, the first step should be you should ask the employee, right? So first, the best thing is you ask the employee and you understand whether the employee is having the correct perspective or not. After that, who's the employee, how we can close the performance gap. Many times the managers they just intimidate the employees, but just asking why it is not done, why you are late, or why you are not achieved the target, why these errors, why this no lacuna in this work area, why there's no progress. So instead of asking too many whys, it will be a good idea that okay, when we are doing performance, providing performance feedback, we also ask questions, right? How it can we can do it and what support you require from our end. After doing it, then we need to agree on the next step and keep the relationship going. Next slide, please. Other important thing we should always understand is we have to understand the review meeting and goal setting, right? Many times I am tempted that okay, so for the previous financial year I am doing, for example, review meeting, and I tend to set the goals for the next year at the same point of time, right? So I'm sure I hope that I'm making myself clear. So the challenges here is most of the organizations or the managers, what they do is they are reviewing the performance for the previous year, and at the same time they are setting goal for the next financial year. They're planning for the uh, goal setting for the next year. So what happened is because of that, the proper goal setting may not happen properly, right? Because the environment and the conversation is usually emotion loaded. That is not right time to set goals for the next year. So whenever we are setting goals for the next year, so the better idea is to first to let this performance review finish, and then you can schedule a meeting after a gap of maybe week or 10 days or whatever is the organization requirement or the no the instruction you receive from your HR or the senior management. Next slide, please. So in the VUCA world, so 1 year is a very long time period nowadays because the things may change abruptly. So nobody imagined that there would be a war between uh, Israel and Iran, right? Or maybe Israel could again reply back to Iran maybe today. So this is a VUCA world. So the things are very uncertain. The market dynamics may change suddenly. So it is unfair or it is not practical for me to plan or set goals for my team members for 1 year. Rather, we suggest that okay, we set it for maybe half yearly or quarterly. If it is not possible, then you can set the annual goals, but ultimately there should be an option where you can change the goals midway, right? So the examples are, for example, the Gap, the famous retailer. So they already have moved to the quarter target. G also now moving has moved to short-term priority. So G no longer has this annual appraisal. So what they have is they have a short-term priority, or they have small goals. That could be project based or that could be a task based, but they don't wait for a financial year to end and then do appraisal. So it is done on the ongoing basis. Next slide, please. Now let's try to understand what's really happening today. So employers are now emphasizing praise over criticism, right? So it is said that managers should not touch more than two couple of areas that need improvement. So I'm not saying that employee may will be having only two areas of improvement. So it is possible that I have an employee which is having maybe to take an example, maybe he has 10 areas of improvement. But at one go, I cannot ask my employees to improve on all these 10 aspects. Number one, it is going to be difficult it will be overwhelming for this person to improve on so many areas. And he will be spreading his his butter too thin. It will not be impactful, right? So I need him to work on few critical areas. So what is said is you pick up two important areas which is having the maximum impact on the performance, and then you work with the employee and advise the employee to improve on those particular two areas. Once the improvement is observed or the person is uh, able to practice that skill or is able to improve performance in that area, right? Because and he has assimilated the learning and he has improved on that. Then you pick up the other two areas. So we go bite by bite rather than trying to have the whole bread at one go, right? So most of the Fortune 500 companies use Gallup Strength Finder. So I will request my participant to go there and even try for themselves. So it is a very good website, Gallup Strength Finder. What it does is it will identify what are your strengths. So instead of focusing on the your weak areas, so we are focusing on the strength. So Gallup suggests that okay, you start working enhancing your strength rather than focusing only on your weak areas. So this is the example I always love to give to everyone, that had Sachin Tendulkar focused on practicing on his singing skills or practice on his wicket keeping skills than on batting, then we wouldn't have got a legend. So he focused on his strength. His strength was batting, and he focused only on that. And he focused so much on his strength that he became one of the best batsmen, one of the world class player. So it is very imperative, and it is very sorry, it is very tempting for as a manager to tell my employee that you have to improve on these areas which are your weakness and ignoring his strength. So the real trend nowadays is number one, employees emphasizing on praising the strength of their employees and asking them and giving them opportunity to develop them. And definitely the if there are holes in the boat, I'm not saying that we don't fix the holes in the boat. We have to fix it because it is threatening, right? But similarly, we cannot just ignore the strength and just focus on the development areas of my employees. Next slide, please. Right. Now there is I told you on one hand that okay, we have to focus only on the strength, but I will now give you another contradictory statement. So Jack Welch said that okay, it will be cruel to tell someone who is mediocre that his work is satisfactory. So I am so much involved in praising my people, and I am scared of telling them to address their weakness. That even to a mediocre person, I don't find any fault in his work. So what is going to happen here, right? So if there is a worker who is mediocre and he has got some areas of improvement, and because of my lack of confidence, or because I want to be a very good manager, or I want to don't I'm scared to tell him, or I'm not trained enough how to tell him his area of improvement. I don't point his finger. So ultimately, he will waste his time doing the same job in the same way over years. And it may happen one day that a more demanding boss will come, and then he will say that, okay, you are not suitable for the organization anymore. So what I want to say here is that, okay, it will be disservice on my part if I don't tell my juniors that what are their areas of improvement, right? So here I will try to balance both the things. So here I'm not saying that I will not pick up the mistakes and I will say only strength. I will tell them about the strength, but I will pick up more critical areas where he can improve, and then I will develop it. Next slide, please. right? These are simple appraisal interviews hints what we have to do and do's and don'ts. I think it is pretty simple. So usually where many of the managers or the team leadership team fail is that they don't prepare in advance, neither they give opportunity for the employees to prepare in advance. So it may happen that okay, out of a blue moon, they will say that okay, we will come on now. Today we have your appraisal discussion. So that is not a good idea actually. So appraisal discussion has to be slotted. You have to give them a proper time slot. That okay, I will, for example, I will have your performance appraisal discussion on maybe after 1 week, and from this day, this time to this time. And possibly it is a good idea if you at least give 1 hour for every single performance appraisal discussion. Right. So most of the points we have discussed. Right. Other point is in do's also that you need to focus on the future performance. Please understand it is my duty that at the end of the performance appraisal discussion, the employee, when he leaves my cabin, he is very, very clear what he has to do henceforth. And he leaves more motivated rather than leaving more demotivated. Even if a person is a poor performer, then he should be leaving my cabin with a clear cut instruction that what he has to do next, right? Which are the areas he need to work on, right? And if he is not working on this, what are going to be the likely consequences of it? Other mistakes most of the manager do is they may make it a monologue, right? So manager is just he keep on talking, and the employee they are just considering it as a lecture. They feel that there is no interaction, there is no input asked, and after that, no, the employees they lose interest, or they possibly mentally shut down their ears mentally. Second, the trap here is don't mix performance appraisal with salary or promotion. So definitely you must have experienced the moment you start doing performance appraisal, the employee will definitely bring the question of his increment and the promotion, right? He will definitely say, sir, no, you promised last time that you will promote me. You're not giving me promotion. You promised me increment of this percent, but you gave me only that percent. So he may definitely will be having some grievance or some issues with his promotion and the salary. So what happened is we want the performance appraisal discussion to focus only on the development side of it, how he can improve the performance. That is the goal of the discussion. The goal of discussion is not whether the person is going to get increment or not, and if he's going to get, how much increment he's going to get. So in this case, whenever this topic is brought by the subordinate, it is prudent to tell the subordinate that okay, this is not in my hand, so I'm not the only person who will be deciding on it. So it will be decided by maybe the compensation committee or the appropriate name you can take or appropriate committee you can take. And at this point of time, we are just discussing on your performance, and this part possibly will be discussed some other point of time, right? Uh, right. Other important thing is, uh, it is not necessary that you and your employee will always agree on all the points. There could be some areas where there would be disagreement, right? Possibly you are rating below below expectation to your employee. The employee may feel that okay is above expectation. It may happen, or right. So keep a room for disagreement. So you need not say that okay he has to agree every time. So don't keep on harping that okay you the employee need to agree to you on all every aspect. But you should have the courage to say in firm and polite way that okay I am listening to what you're saying, but this is my opinion and these are the reasons for my opinion. Based on this particular data, I am rating you this, right? Other mistake we as a manager do is we always compare one employee with the other employee, and usually this leads nowhere. This is another whirlpool which a manager should always avoid when he is doing performance appraisal. Because once I start comparing the employee with another person, so believe me, he will tell you the 10 reasons why he is better than the other employee. So the whole conversation goes into a different loop, and the main idea of performance appraisal discussion is totally lost. Next slide, please.
Just launch one. I mean, we have another two more polls.
Yes, please.
The other one will be towards the end. Now, since we did speak about SMART goals, I would like to launch this. Now, what is the purpose of setting SMART goals in performance management? Okay. Well, undoubtedly, I think everyone selected the third option. It's a good thing. Okay.
Fantastic.
I think all the options are easy. So
Yes,
one of
yes,
them.
yes.
Okay, not bad. All right, I'll end the poll and let's take a look at the answers quickly. Okay, so yeah, the option is obviously the third one. I don't think it's showing the entire answer, but yes, to ensure goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. That is the
Yes,
answer.
yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you can go forward with the next.
Yeah, thank you. So it is reconfirming my belief that the audience is very learned audience, and I am very happy to interact with such learned audience. Right. So another cartoon in a humorous way. This is what really may happen in certain organizations.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Next
I'll
slide,
go to the
please.
next slide.
Right. So this is these are the points actually I have covered earlier also. Right. So don't get personal. Don't say you're too slow producing those reports. So you have to. It is not a blame game. So for example, you have to pull out the data and say that okay, this is your data, and right instead of you are very slow, you should say that okay, this report should be completed, for example, in 10 days. Right. Similarly, then you will encourage the people to talk. Right. The points are already covered. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. Right. So now coming to the biasness. So most of the employee they have the perception that performance appraisal is usually very biased. So what are the reasons of belief? So let's try to understand in brief what some of the data errors which are commonly seen, observed. So first rater error is that different managers, they will have a varying standard, or same manager will have a varying standard for different employees. For one person, he may be lenient, for other person, he may be very strict. Or it may happen then a particular, for example, one manager may rate somebody on a particular way, other person will rate in a particular way. So we always get a complaint that the performance appraisal marketing department was done very leniently, everybody got very high score, whereas the performance appraisal, for example, in no finance or product department was very strict and everybody got a low rating, right? So that will happen and that should not happen actually. So what are the ways we do it that I will address? Briefly, I can say that maybe you can use the bell curve method or the force distribution you can do based on the performance of your organization or the department. So you link the performance of department with the force distribution. So for example, there are 4 different departments, A, B, C, D, and the business performance of A department is 150%. So there maybe I can lenient, I can say that maybe there 80% of the people uh, or maybe there 40% of people could be in the rating of exceed performance, and maybe only less than 5% could be the below expectation performance or poor performance. Because the organization, the department itself has done very well. So I am understanding that because the department itself has done very well, so that means that most of the people have done good performance. On the other hand, there is other department which has done poorly and maybe has achieved only 60% of their target or whatever was assigned to them. So it is unlikely that the department has done 60%, and in this when you see the distribution of the rating, there you have 80% of workers achieving exceed target. So it is not possible that 80% of workers are getting very high rating, performance rating, but the department performance is very less. So in this department, to compare to department A and department B, so I can say that okay, department A should have the distribution of higher rating more, whereas in the department B, where the performance was low, the distribution should be on the lower side, right? So that is the one way you can address this. Second is recency and primacy effect. It always happened that in my career, I have seen in various companies, in most of the companies, that people, they improve their performance drastically as we approach the time of performance appraisal. So when the word goes around that okay, now the performance appraisal time is there, so the punctuality of people will improve, they will stay late. So it is like I'm not pinpointing anywhere to any particular organization, but it is usually seen. It may not be applicable in organization, or it may be, I don't know. But so this is because of recency effect. The manager tend to remember only the recent good thing the person has done, right? So they want to create this impression that okay, the person was always been punctual by coming on time at the time of appraisal or near the time of appraisal. There's central tendency effect, which is very harmful. So many of the time, the manager, they don't want to upset the basket, the apple cart. So they give everybody average rating. So in this case, what will happen, because the poor performer, they will the poor performer in a way may feel happy, but generally your good performer and average performer, they already feel unsatisfied. So central tendency or giving everyone the same rating is a very bad idea. This rater bias, right? So we all understand this. Halo and horn effect, I'm sure all of you know. Contrast area, right? That we already discussed, don't compare to other people. Right, so I think the important data errors is covered here. Next slide, please. So for those at senior level, it is very important that you determine and you map your people on this famous McKinsey 9-box talent matrix, and based on that you take your talent decision, right? So you have to map your people on basis two criteria. One is performance, second is potential, right? Based on that you can determine what action you want to take against the person. Next slide, please. So let's try to understand what are the latest trend happening across this. Right, so Deloitte they have dumped the 360 feedback, right? Because there were a lot of errors in 360 feedback, a lot of partiality, and people were focusing more on building relation rather than on performance, right? So what Deloitte is doing is they are doing quarterly performance snapshot. The immediate manager is asked to ask 4 focus questions. One on compensation, second on teamwork, performance, and promotion. So I asked the manager, as a manager, what do you think the compensation of your employee is? Is it according to his performance? Whether employee is doing right teamwork, whether the employee's performance is poor or good, and whether the employee is eligible for promotion. Right? In Netflix actually has done away with formal performance review. Right? They are doing an informal review nowadays. So they are just asking people to identify in the colleague what the colleague should start doing more, what the colleague should stop doing, what the colleague should continue doing. So only 3 questions are asked to the colleagues about a employee. Next slide. So the topic is very vast actually, and usually the timeline is very 1 hour, 2 hour is very less to cover this. So you may feel that I am trying to I'm rushing through it. The reason here is because we need to respect the time of all the participants. Right. Now, the electronic performance monitoring is the latest trend which is happening here. So, particular one example I want to quote here is from Tesco. How the Tesco is measuring performance of its warehouse workers. So they are asking the warehouse workers to wear the armbands, and through the armbands they are able to gather the data that which goods are moved by the warehouse workers and how much time they are taking to do complete each and every task. So the organizations are monitoring their employees. So here you get the real-time data, and it is no, it is very easy to monitor sitting at one place centrally, and you can monitor a huge number of employees, right? So electronic monitoring, performance monitoring may be the trend in coming years, which I feel. And if I add it with the AI, so then the dissecting the data and analyzing the data would be easier by using this electronic performance management system. Next slide, please. Now this is this is the important slide where I need to spend time before we go to the question and answer. So I will request you to spend maybe 1 minute of time to read this slide, and then I will explain this in detail. Right. So this is actually maybe we may call it a grid. So what talent action you will take? So there are two areas, two criteria where we are comparing. One is we are identifying the performance of an employee, and second we are identifying the how critical the employee is or the employee's position is for the organization. So on left side we have what 3 categories. First category is the position is very critical to the company's survival and growth. Second category is okay, the role is important role but not very critical. Third is the person's position and role both are not critical. So what we do for a person, for example, whose position is very critical and his performance is high, definitely you provide him additional development experience and give him reward and increment. Whereas the person who is critical, whose position is critical for company and performance is low, then what do? Then you consider additional training to improve the performance. So compare this with the position, the bottom line. So where the person position is not critical. So in this case, if the person is performance is low, so there you have to consider dismissal or outsourcing, right? So similarly, based on this matrix, you can take the talent decision, and then you can link the performance appraisal with the talent action of the organization, right? So this is a interview checklist. So this possibly we can circulate at the end of this seminar. So before you go on any performance appraisal, So it is advisable that the manager, they keep this checklist with them and they tick mark whether they have done it properly or not. So these are all key areas which whatever we have discussed earlier. So based on that, it will help to summarize whether the performance appraisal discussion or the whole process went properly or not. Right. So the manager possibly can look at this checklist before beginning the discussion or during the discussion, and after that he can just take it and then keep for his record on or can send to the HR for the report. Right. I think that's the end of the presentation.
Yeah, that brings us to the end of the presentation. While we get into the Q&A, we can spend, since we've already exceeded the time, I think we can spend another 10 minutes, sir, if that's okay with you, if you have any queries.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, please.
and before we get initiated of the queries, I just want to launch one last poll. This is in track with our common rater errors, that slide that we had. So how well does the organization address bias in performance evaluations? I'll leave this poll on for the next 1 minute. And just want to mention on the side note, audience, those of you who are interested to ask a query directly to Mr. Avinash, I will be able to allow that. You just have to raise your hand or request to unmute. I'll be able to do that. I'll unmute you and you can directly interact with any kind of queries, there is HR or related to a topic itself today, performance management strategies, any of it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I think Ms. Vinita Gupta's question is on the screen. This is something that I mentioned to put it up. Okay, let me just quickly close the poll and then we can take that up. Okay, so somewhat effectively and needs improvement is topping the results as I can see. So looks like, yeah, the organizations will have to up their game in terms of the performance evaluations.
Correct, correct.
All right. Okay. So yeah, so you can take up this question. How can we ensure a subjective performance management system rather than a subjective one? I think she meant
Right.
to say an objective rather than a
Yes,
subject.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Right. So good question, Ms. Vinita. So the important way you can do it is like you can, if you have a SMART goal. So by this you can remove the subjectivity of it. Right. So for example, if I give a goal, let me take an example from sales scenario that I give a target to my one of the employee, one of this KPI is that okay, you have to achieve crore of 1 crore of sale in the area of Uttarakhand for the financial year 23-24. Right. So the target is very clear that I have given him 1 crore of sale. I have specified the area where exactly in Uttarakhand, and I have also specified the timeline. Now, if the person has done 1.25 crore, so it will be appearing, right? So it will be in the records. Then the manager cannot, by his whims of fancy, say that okay, you have done 1.25 crore on the target of 1, but I will give you a poor rating. He cannot do it, right? So once we have a smart goals and smart goals are there, then the manager cannot no give us subjective performance review. So the goal setting has to be is the most critical part of it. So if you are in HR or if you are in leadership role, so what is important for you is to you have to first review whether the performance goal setting has been done properly or not. I'm saying that okay, first you have to train people, etc. But once the goal setting has been done, then it has to be reviewed first by the line manager, and it has to be ultimately reviewed by the person who is out of the department, could be the senior most person. Uh, the leadership can do it on random basis, or the HR should do it on each and every employee. So once the goal setting process is there, and we say that okay, all the goals are following the principle of SMART. Your 80% of the job is done. You are able to rule out at least 80% or 90% of the subjectivity. I hope I made myself very clear. Yes. Next question, please.
From Ms. Aparna, what can be done generally to keep the employees high during or after merit increase announcement? Okay.
Right. So this will always happen. That you see, people, this human psychology. I will not be very unhappy because of my sorrow. I will be unhappy because of my happiness of my colleagues, right? Because of jealousy. So that is given. It will always happen. Right. Now, how do I address it? To address it, if my whole performance appraisal process is very, very objective one and transparent. That okay, and there's a correlation between the rating and the increment people are getting. So we need to prepare a grid. So that defines what is the correlation between the performance and the increment somebody will get. Right. So only thing is you need to put the compare ratio. Compare ratio means the what is the salary range. For example, there are two workers, worker A and worker B. Both are maybe account executive doing the similar job. One person's salary is 30,000 and the person is earning 50,000. Right. Both accountant. First person is getting 30,000, other person is getting 50,000. And the scenario here is that both get the same rating, performance rating. Now the tricky part is if I give 10% to both of them, so 3%, 30%, the person who was at 30,000, he gets a lesser increment. Whereas the person whose salary is 50,000, he gets a bigger increment. All the percentage wise, you are giving them the same increment. So it is very unfair, right? Both are doing the same job. In any case, the first person was at lower salary, and to add the salt to the injury, you are giving me the lesser increment. So when I'm giving increment, so I have to give a slightly higher increment to the person in percentage term who is at a lower salary for the same uh, rating, performance rating. Similarly, I should be able to also distinguish between a poor performer and high performer. So there has to be definitely maybe a gap of at least 3 or 4% between a poor performer and the high performer. Or average performer and high performer, and a poor performer and average performer, there should be further gap of maybe 4 or 5%. So the given rate is 5%, but it also will depend on what is the trend of your particular industry, right? So you have to do the analysis. What does the market is saying? The market is giving a higher increment, maybe 20% they are giving for average performer. So you cannot afford to give maybe 5% increment to your average performer, because it will lead to attrition. I hope I am able to clarify. Next question.
Okay. There's a question from Mr. Pawan. What are some effective techniques for setting clear performance expectations and goals for employees?
Again, Pawan, I will come to
Yeah.
my the same answer. Smart goals. Do smart goals and definitely do a collaborative approach. You should employ. You should number one align the goals of employee with the goals of organization, and please involve the employee when you are setting the goals. So that is very, very important that you involve them once it is done. So the expectation are set. The setting expectation is very, very clear.
Right. And I think there's a repeat question from Suvarna. What are the innovative strategies to be implemented to attract top talent? Can you please explain once again? This is on
Yes.
chat, sir. She's mentioned it specifically to us. So, yeah.
Right. So the attraction of top talent is, I will say, the working environment. So top talent possibly is we call high post. So they are high flyers. So to retain the top talent is difficult, and to attract them is difficult. top talent is definitely compensation is a criteria where by which you can attract, but compensation will play a limited role. Usually, top talent will come for a career growth. If you're able to provide a career progression to the top talent, and you demonstrate, you tell them that what are the career opportunities you have, then you will be able to gather the top talent. Number one. Number two, the working culture is another very important aspect which top talent they will play they consider a lot. Other thing is the freedom to implement the ideas, whether your organization is providing the flexibility, that could be flexible time, flexible way, or the freedom to implement their ideas. If you are to the top talent, if you are able to demonstrate that you will be valuing their inputs, and possibly there are a higher rate of implementation of the employee's idea in your organization, then the top talent, they usually feel attracted to such organizations, right? Please understand the top talent would be those people who are best in the best, number one, and they are usually the uh, people who love to work hard. So they are self-motivators, self-starters. So you have to just provide them the right environment. And if you are able to provide these three things, that number one, you provide them a competitive package and good culture, you can demonstrate, offer them the flexibility, and offer them the opportunities of the growth. Or you can show them the career ladder, which your organization will offer better than any other organization, by this you can attract the top talent. Top talent are also available is usually on various uh, professional sites. So these are the people who you will always find enhancing their skill and updating their skills. So, if you have to find out the accountant or HR professional, then you are top talent. So go to the sites where this HR professional assemble and they contribute, and find out the people who are contributing the most. So top talent, they will always be the giving a lot of ideas. So by this you can identify them, and attracting the I already explained. I hope I made some sense to your question.
Okay. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Ms. Suvarna.
So I will take question from Ms. Prishali. Goal setting and KRIs are aligned to each other. Yes, definitely. It has to be, right? As I discussed earlier in my slide. So you have to set the goals you have to draw the goals based on the job description of the person, right? Similarly, you have to set those goals where the employee is spending most of his time, right? So if the goals are not aligned to KRA, so it doesn't make any sense. Like the example I was giving, I gave jokingly that okay, I cannot give a singing goal to a finance manager, right? Yeah, Ms. Vishali. So first you understand what is the goals objective of your organization. Second, you understand where the person is spending most of his time. Third, you review his JD, and based on that, you draw the goals. And definitely, goals has to be again smart. Right?
All right. Okay. And audience, if there's anyone who would like to directly interact, I think we have another 2 minutes before we wrap up. Anyone who would like to unmute and directly interact with our speaker, I'll be able to do that. You just have to raise your hand, the raise hand feature, or you can drop a text on chat and I'll be able to allow that. Okay. So looks like there's not any questions further. So I think on that note, we will close the session for today. Once again, thank you so much for your efforts and the completely, I would rather say it was a full-fledged presentation, which is also why, it did take that long of a time. And as you mentioned, you cannot cover all of it in a session. So somehow you were able to concise it and explain. So I believe it was fully self-explanatory. So on that note, Thank you so much for your time and efforts on yet another webinar, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, participant. Thank you, Mr. Siddharth, for excellent efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And audience, on a side note, those of you who have mentioned that you're looking at a demo of a platform, our team will reach out to you in the next 1 or 2 working days, and we will schedule, understand what exactly that you're looking for, and schedule a demo for you. And you will also receive the webinar deck and the stream link, the entire webinar's link on our post-webinar mail. So on that note, thank you all and have a wonderful evening and a great weekend. Thank you all.